Yes, there we were, Laura and I, both huge Elvis fans, in a theater full of other Elvis fans, watching the movie on the biggest, loudest screen possible, and we had a great time. Hell yes, I grew up in an Elvis household, from my mom's Elvis records to his movies as well, like Follow That Dream, Viva Las Vegas, and Speedway, cause that's the one that also had Ross Hagen in it. I even grew up watching movies about Elvis, mainly the John Carpenter biopic starring Kurt Russell, which is damn good, and also the stuff that isn't a bio but does have Elvis in it. We saw that movie Heartbreak Hotel in the theater, the one where Charlie Schlatter kidnaps Elvis as a birthday present to his mom. I kinda like this movie, and David Keith was an awesome Elvis. As for the Baz Luhrmann film, the movie gave me everything I wanted. Oh, you think you know this movie's style from the trailer? Jesus, you haven't seen anything yet. This is just what you would want out of Baz Luhrmann directing a movie based on the life story of Elvis. It is a masterpiece of editing, showmanship, style, a bombastic spectacle, and really is the director wanting to make the greatest show on earth. Hell, the style of the movie is probably the main star of it. Though it does tone itself down after a while, as the first couple of acts have to do with using all of this extreme flash to show the wildness of this rock and roll lifestyle, but then gets a lot more serious as it begins to unravel the gravity of the situation. As much as I was loving the editing, I was glad when it toned down, only in the sense that it's a 2.5-hour movie, and with the seats thumping from the RPX theater, I might have gotten a little nauseous if the whole movie was like that. Naturally, it does hit all of the notes of a typical biopic. Yes, it shows the discovery, the rise, the setback, the fall, the marriage, all of that. And because so many movies like this have to hit those familiar notes, they can come across as bland, or just been there, done that. Then of course there are some standout ones, like Rocketman, where the storytelling and the filmmaking did something original, and that's the category I'd put this in. I wasn't sitting there thinking I've seen this movie dozens of times, because the filmmaking, the performances, and its method of storytelling through the narration and editing kept it engaging. For as long as the movie is, I was never bored, and really this movie went by damn fast for me. What certainly helps all of this is how perfect Austin Butler is in this role. He's one of the best Elvis performances I've seen. I wasn't sure from the trailer, since sometimes in that, he looked more like someone from the early 2000s doing Elvis than he did Elvis, but in the actual movie, it didn't take me long to accept that this is Elvis Presley. There are shots where it's uncanny, and then in shots where you see it in the face that he looks different, he wholeheartedly makes up for it by having the mannerisms, the charisma, the charm, and the stage presence down. He's perfect in the more dramatic scenes too, and really captures all of these notable times in Elvis's life. As for Tom Hanks, I know this is already kind of a divisive performance. I've seen some people hate it, and others who like it. But as for me, I didn't have a problem with Tom Hanks at all in this. It's a more over-the-top Tom Hanks performance, almost like a Dutch entertainment manager version of his role in The Lady Killers. But I don't know, his delivery may have been a bit exaggerated from the real Colonel Tom, but it did fit the style and tone of this movie. None of what he was doing seemed out of place to me. This is an Elvis biopic that is sometimes put together like an Elvis movie, or hell, even one of the Elvis-ploitation movies, like Wild Guitar or Blast Off Girls. It made sense to me that Tom Hanks would go full Bougie Baker. I even like that it's Tom Hanks' Colonel Tom who is narrating this and telling the story from his own point of view, because that's something original that sets itself apart from your typical Elvis biopic, or biopics in general. I love what they do with Colonel Tom being the villain of this, but he's narrating it like he doesn't know he is one and is trying to say, see, you should be thanking me. He's doing all of these terrible things, but is saying things like it's those damn hippies that got in his head. He'll have a horrible idea, Elvis will do the opposite and be successful, then he'll say, see, that was my idea. There are things the movie brushes by pretty quickly, like Elvis's time in the army, but then they do focus a lot on things that I was digging. I love how much time they put into the making of the comeback special, and also everything in Vegas. When it gets deep into the Vegas years, it does get tremendously sad, to where you're almost in tears watching it. You feel the tragedy of this situation, where this guy is almost held prisoner here, exhausted, can't travel the world, and is just stuck in this nightmare twilight zone of performance after performance after performance, to where it really becomes a horror film about exhaustion. There's a scene where he's talking about barely ever visiting outside the country and never making a movie that he could be proud of, and it's extremely heartbreaking. It is a weekend of A-minuses because that's what I'm giving this to. There's a couple of modern soundtrack choices that were a little distracting, and I could see where it could probably be tightened in some places and expanded in some others, but like I said, I was thoroughly entertained from beginning to end, and I highly recommend it, especially if you're an Elvis fan. Thanks for watching, everyone, and stay tuned Monday for a new episode of Midnight Screenings, and we'll see you next time.